Homemade bread is actually way easier than it seems, and way healthier. Just start off with using a medium bowl. You're going to put in 1 1/2 teaspoons of active dry yeast and 1 3/4 cups of warm water. Now you're going to mix this up until the yeast is all the way dissolved and it becomes a little bit of a murky mixture. Then you're going to put in your 3 1/2 cups of all-purpose flour, and you're also going to put in your 2 teaspoons of salt right away into the same bowl. From there, you're going to use your spatula to mix everything together really well. Now the dough is going to be a little dry and it might seem a little sticky, but that's fine. Cover and let rest for 1 hour in no heat. Okay, after we've let it rest, now we're going to start with patting our dough into a rectangle. Make sure you have flour on your hands and make sure that there's flour on the surface so it doesn't stick to where you are patting it out. Now, after you pat it out, you're going to fold it into thirds over itself and then again, and like a little roll. And after you do that, you're going to put it into a greased bowl. You can grease it with a little bit of oil and a paper towel. Then you're going to cover it with the same piece of plastic wrap that you used before. Put a towel on top of it and let it rest for 1 more hour in the same place you did before. Okay, now we're going to prep for the overnight rise. And basically you're going to do the same thing you just did, the same molding method, but this time instead of letting it rise on your countertop or somewhere, you're just going to put it in the fridge overnight. Now, the good thing about making bread at home is that you don't have all the additives that bread from the store does. Bread that you buy from the stores has so many additives. It has so much added sugar. You don't want that in your regular bread. Okay, it's the next day, and you can tell how much the dough has risen from once we both started. Now we're going to flour everything just as we always do, and this time we actually are going to do some kneading. Kneading is it's really easy. All you have to do is just pick up a piece and then you put your palm downwards again until you make something of a circle. You're going to grease a pan. I like using a cake pan because of what we're going to do next, and it all makes sense later. Now I'm going to put the flour on top of the grease and pat out the rest. Put your dough in a circle about 6 inches. Put the rest of the flour, about a tablespoon, on top and let it rise for 1 hour and 30 minutes on your counter. After that's done, we're going to move on to scoring, which is something really fun and I think is really creative because you can really do anything you want. I'm going to go with something really easy. I think it's really traditional. You always see breads like that. Be careful what flour you use because bleach flours use chlorine, and those also strip the flour and the grain from all of the nutrients that you need from wheat. Now that's what makes using homemade bread even healthier for you. Alright, so we're going to put a tablespoon of this flour on top just to make sure your design stays perfect. We're going to put a piece of aluminum foil on top, which will create more moisture while you're baking. We're going to bake this at 500 degrees for 25 minutes. Okay, so after the first 25 minutes, take off that piece of tin foil and put it back in 425 for 20 minutes. Alrighty, so after you're done with that, make sure you let it cool, obviously, before you start touching the bread because it will be hot. The one I'm cutting right now is the one that we made together, and this one is one that I tried another scoring method on. So, as you guys can tell, there's a really nice rise to the bread and lots of little bubbles inside, and that's from the yeast. That's actually a living organism that lives off the sugars in the flour. So, thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoy this recipe. Bye!